Hey, welcome back to Song of the Day here in the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark Pierce. Today is Monday, April 13th. And for today, we're going back to 1985. The number one album in all the land is Phil Collins' No Jacket Required. Great album. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm a big Phil Collins fan, although I will admit I have been critical of his later career. Not very happy with the incessant playing of Groovy Kinda Love. Not a fan. And then he really just nailed it for me when he re-recorded Cyndi Lauper's True Colors. That was pretty terrible. And then he moved somewhere and started an Alamo Museum or something. Anyway, everyone knows Phil Collins' career. We won't spend a lot of time talking about Genesis because we'll do that on another time. But obviously, very popular. He's one of only 3 artists to sell over 100 million records as a solo artist and a member of a band. So that's pretty cool. The other 2 are Paul McCartney, obviously, that's one, and Michael Jackson. So, No Jacket Required comes out. That's his 3rd solo album. Critically successful. 4 singles: Sussudio, One More Night, Don't Lose My Number, and Take Me Home. It sells 12 million copies in the United States. It wins 3 Grammys. It was obviously all over the place. One of his most popular songs that was not a single was Long, Long Way to Go. And that gets a lot of airplay. And then I remember hearing Inside Out from that album on the radio, and that was not a single as well. A couple of facts about that album: Sting and Peter Gabriel are backing vocals on Take Me Home. I did not know that. Just a great album. It played all summer long. If you want to hear a little bit more about Phil Collins and Genesis, I recommend a podcast that was recommended to me. Thank you, Renee. It's Hit Parade, and it's the one about Genesis and Peter Gabriel. In the middle of 1985, something happened that will probably never happen again in the history of music and didn't happen prior, and that's where members of a band were competing for top records in the charts all at the same time. So you had, in the middle of the 80s, you had Genesis with this album. You had Phil Collins, Genesis with Invisible Touch. You had Phil Collins with this album. You had Peter Gabriel with his huge smash hit, Sledgehammer, that summer. And then you had Mike and the Mechanics. Not everyone remembers that Mike Rutherford was a member of Genesis, and they had several hits in the top 10 at that same time. So in that summer, they were all in the top 10, actually competing for number 1. They would flip-flop back and forth at number 1. It's a pretty cool podcast. Again, Hit Parade, check it out. It's cool. Today we're going with Don't Lose My Number, Phil Collins. That's your song of the day. Enjoy.